Graffiti is everywhere. Some say it's a work of art. Some say it's a menace to society. Either way, humans do it a lot.
Whether it's making sure your name is scribbled over a wall or wanting your artwork to be the next Banksy, graffiti has gripped the people of England for a long time. In fact, probably a lot longer than you'd think.
But to find some really old graffiti, I'm going to have to go far away and back in time.
Be aware that smoking or vaping is not allowed anywhere.
This programme is about finding old spaces that are far out, so I would need to take the most reliable transport Britain has yet to offer, the National Rail Service. Incidentally, there were strikes on this day, so we didn't know if we'd make it for filming or not, and I didn't even know if I'd get back home for work the next day. But anyway, I had to find out, could I find something incredibly old that could closely resemble graffiti? Or could I be wrong and find something completely different and beyond my own scope of knowledge? I had to travel somewhere very out of the way to find out.
Today I'm in Ilkley, a small town in West Yorkshire, but I'm not here for the town, I'm here for the surrounding area, since it's got some lovely, gorgeous moorland. Let's go. That's the one.
And then, after looking around almost hopelessly and realising I should have worn my coat in these shots for continuity, I found what I was looking for.
Aha, I think this could be a cup and ring stone. So if you want to follow me, take as much time as you need to come round, and yes, this is it. This is the Badger Stone. The Badger Stone is one of the more famous, well-known cup and ring stones around here on Ilkley Moor. We have these wonderful cups and rings. You can kind of see it from an angle as well. If you want to come down here, you'll be able to see, yeah, there's loads more here. There's a cup which is in the very centre, that's the dip, and the ring is around the dip. These are really old. These are like Neolithic speaking, and I would love to sit and chat with you today about what they're used for and why they were put on this rock. But honestly, I have no idea.
I spoke to Mariana Hotter, a broadcast journalist and anthropologist who's written several books about old things in the middle of nowhere. That's pretty cool, right? And she's presented for Time Team. Let's find out what she has to say.
Not many people know about them. Even people who regularly go walking on, say, Rumbold's Moor, which is part of Ilkley Moor, they're like, "Was a what?" We don't know anything about what they were for. So that's the point, Elise, that we get to speculate wildly. Was it part of some ritual? Is it some kind of mystical pictogram language? Is it some kind of abstract storytelling? Some people have said that maybe it's a way of marking territory. Most of British rock art isn't the kind of stuff that you might imagine if you're thinking of those caves in Lascaux in France or Altamira in Spain, where you've got like buffalo, galloping, painted really beautifully, or handprints kind of with paint or ochre splattered around them. We may have had that in the UK at some point, but it hasn't survived, if we ever did have it. The chances are probably that people were actually moving much more seasonally here, and so they perhaps weren't as settled enough to sit down and go, right, let's start the masterpiece. What we actually find when you talk about British rock art and ancient art is engravings into panels of rock, and it's much more subtle. It's a connoisseur's rock art, shall we call it.
This type of cup and ring stone is all over the world, but the highest concentration of them are here in England. Now, I'd like to try to find out what some locals think, but there aren't many around here, so I'm going to have to catch some. Did you know that Badger Stone was here?
Well, we did actually, because we're doing a recce for a run, a fell race, my first fell race next Tuesday. It's a nice big stone, and it's good to get here to finally know we're in the right place. So yeah, I do like the Badger Stone.
All right, folks, and we've got a very special stone here indeed. This one is called the Barmershaw stone, and the Barmershaw stone is much like the Badger stone, made out of the same stuff and probably the same people. I mean, it's only a 2-minute walk that way. All right, 5-minute walk that way. But you still have the cup and ring stones. However, each stone, each cup and ring stone is individualistic. Each one differs from the next. And what's more, they are scheduled monuments, which means they are protected by the land, the people, the law, and you cannot, ironically, graffiti on them or anything like that.
Most of these date from the Bronze Age, so some of them possibly a little bit earlier. It's quite hard to date them. So probably not earlier than 4000 BC, which would plant it firmly in the Neolithic, the late Stone Age. But probably most of it is later, so from the Bronze Age, from about 2400 BC to about 1500 BC. And then it looks like these sites, they're not destroyed, but new ones aren't being created. So that perhaps suggests that there's some kind of change in practice. So we know about 7,000 known rock art panels in England and Wales and Scotland, but there is inevitably more still undiscovered. A lot of it may well be covered by vegetation or by a layer of peat. I'm not saying that we should be going around digging them up, because at the point you dig them up, you're potentially damaging a very precious archaeological site, so please don't do that, folks. But also, once you expose it to the weather, you expose it to a much greater chance of it being destroyed. And sometimes they've found that actually if you try and peel off the vegetation that's grown over a stone, you end up actually peeling the layer of stone off that has the rock art in it. It just crumbles. So better to absolutely leave it be, because these are archaeological sites and would be scheduled if they were known about. So they would be protected in law. So you have to act as if they are already protected in law.
Before we finish, there's something else I want to show you. Nestled in the Peak District is my favourite cup and ring stone of them all. Many people cross this space and don't even realise it's hanging right over their head. It's hidden in plain sight between the border of Derbyshire and South Yorkshire, but it takes a real keen eye to find it.
All right, if you follow me, it's this way. Up here. Oh. This is the Toad's Mouth. The Toad's Mouth is a stone that hangs precariously over a road as busy users cross it, thinking nothing of it. As did I for many years, until I researched it and found out the Toad's Mouth is called the Toad's Mouth because it looks like a toad. Why? Because of some graffiti on it to make those eyes. Each side has one eye, and people think that these were done a very, very long time ago. In fact, these might be Mesolithic period drawn graffiti eyes. Fantastic. Especially as it's so obscure, it's so hard to research, and nobody really knows the true story behind it.
I kind of just love the idea that there are people gathered around this stone with all these weird markings, and they have those same markings on their body or on their clothing. And you kind of go, oh, maybe this was a motif that was on the doorposts of their homes. Maybe this was a motif that they would paint onto the flanks of their cattle. We don't know. But I kind of love the idea that actually, if you kind of zoomed down as the time traveller, you'd be like, hold on a minute, there's cup and rings everywhere.
All right, folks, at the beginning of this episode, I wanted to portray these as graffiti, these markings, but I really, after all this researching and all this going out and finding them myself, I don't know if you can call it graffiti. Perhaps it has the same essence or will within the person's mind to put their ideas onto something forever, but there is something very different about them. See, the people that did this, even though Perhaps they were a lot like me. I think they were also far too different. They had different gods, they had different ideas, and these were probably done for a reason that I will never, ever, ever comprehend. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay. I am a little bit sad about it, but it's okay. I'll get over it. And I'm going to have to see you next time, where hopefully my mind is blown, your mind is blown in the middle of nowhere.
Child. Good morning. Have you ever wondered where this type of food comes from?
What were they?
Like this is wheat and cereal grain, right? But imagine the first people to start having animals and start
Imagine
making
the world being so different back then.
How on earth would you manage to create cereal from grain?
So the shreddies together. It's really important that we think about where our food comes from. What about 3,000 years ago? Where did we get food then? Don't you think it's really important that we know where our food comes from?
It's too early for this.
You're right. I think you're absolutely right. We're going to need to go on a journey far away and back in time.
Again. No.
Come on, let's go.
No.
Come on, let's go.
No. Can I finish this first?
No.
You might have seen one of these before, right? It's called a field. And if you've been in England long enough, you've seen a lot of them and probably think they're very boring by now. You've also probably seen what's around it, a housing estate, and they're all pretty boring. But this one, this one is different. This is a special field. It's an interesting field, and it has a lot of history to tell me.
And so, on my quest to find out more, I found a man who likes this field a lot.
You've taken me to a field in the middle of an estate. What on earth have you done this for? Why have you taken me here?
Well, that's a very good question, because it has to be said, actually, when you look around, why on earth would anyone have any interest in this? It looks derelict, overgrown, bit of a mess. Then I looked into it, and it turns out that, unbelievably, this is possibly the oldest community site in Britain. And it doesn't look much, but what was here goes back over, 6,000 years. The remains that we found here, largely in sort of post holes, which have been radiocarbon dated to prove their authenticity, do actually date it right back to more or less 4000 BC. One of the amazing discoveries from here was that in one of the longhouses was a load of cereal discovered, which shows that this place was actually being used for farming and cultivation of cereal, which wasn't considered the thing that was being going on at the time.
You live really close to here, and your passion drove you to build a website around this. What drove that?
Well, because when I started to look into it, trying to find all the various pieces of information was proving a bit of a challenge. I thought it'd be quite nice if you just go to one place and everything was written in a fairly easy to read way. I'm not saying I've achieved that, but more accessible. As with here, I mean, it looks nothing like the most amazing site in Britain by quite a long way. But in actual fact, when you look into it, yeah, there's a large piece of history here.
After speaking with Jonathan, I decided to find out a little bit more about Lismore Fields. But considering I don't know more about Lismore Fields, I'd have to go somewhere to someone who would know more about Lismore Fields. So I ended up going to somewhere where somebody would know more about Lismore Fields, which happened to be Buxton Museum. And in Buxton Museum, I found Ros.
Looks a bit like a wasteland. But it's one of those magical places in the middle of a town where a little bit of information and a little bit of imagination and you suddenly can go back in time. This is a site of archaeological importance. It's a scheduled monument, and one of the things they found was a building which looked like it had been a granary. The excavations in the 1980s found very, very early buildings there. Coming to the thermal waters probably of Buxton 5,000 years ago, and they continued to come and go until about 3,000 years ago.
Why is it that these food groups, why are they so important for humanity, for our story and how it's being built?
We need dinner. Really, for humanity, the way we have developed right over time is we've developed as a top predator, relying on meat. Now, the point of meat is that some other animal has processed the grass. If you can grow additional, you're not having to kill all your animals, then you're beginning to get surplus. But in order to do that, you have to start to settle, because things take time to grow. Now, what we've got is big diasporas of communities coming in from the Middle East. People are coming across bringing seeds in their pockets. Seeds that they know will grow and produce well. These people are coming in, and they're also, and this is the bit that I find really amazing, they're also bringing their animals. Now, the land bridge between Europe and Britain has gone, and you have to be pretty brave to do that.
As well as this being one of the oldest sites in the UK, predating Stonehenge by the way, one of the oldest pots in the UK was found here, and impressively, you can find it in the museum in very good shape.
And this right here is one of the oldest pots in the UK ever found, of course, in Lismore Fields. If you come follow me now, you'll see a reconstruction of this pot with what they would have thought would have had some dinner inside, which looks pretty appetizing for British food.
This little field should be making a big impact, but it has no signs or information easily available to find out about it. People like John are keeping this secret part of Britain alive in the hope that its legacy lives on. But this is hard with no signs and few ways to find out about it. When I came here today, I felt something special, something secret and something forgotten. Let's hope this secret spot gets more recognition in the future.
It was discovered in a serendipitous moment. It was discovered by putting houses here. So, and this place that has been lived on for 6,000 years is continuing to be lived on. I'm amazed by it because it's right near me, but this is everywhere, and all to be discovered. You wouldn't think that possibly this is the first community in Britain that's survived all this time through the Mesolithic period, the Neolithic period, through the Romans, through William the Conqueror, through 2 world wars, and it's still here now. People are still living here.
I found out today that our ancestors are a lot more like us than I thought they were. They have the same goals. They want to live. They want to thrive. Skills have definitely changed over time. Yes, I could definitely write a better Instagram post than they could, hands down, with more likes. But I couldn't hunt. So yeah, skills have definitely changed, and I'm a product of my generation. Either way, standing here today, I'm a lot closer to my ancestors than I might ever be. Although actually I'm part German, so it'd make more sense if I was in Germany because but yeah, other than that, I'll see you next time in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes humans don't really understand why they do things. For instance, take Shackleton going into the Antarctic, cave explorers going into the unknown, going straight into danger to find new cave. Or take this example, building a hill by hand that takes generation after generation to build it. To me, this proves that humanity is more than just about living. It's about thriving, and the lumps and bumps on the southern landscape project this all.
I've set off to Hampshire, my home county, because this time I knew I needed a friend, a confidant, someone I could trust to help me travel far away and back in time. Meet my dad.
Thanks, Elise. When are you going to learn to drive?
Dad, they're watching. Oh my, can we be cool for once?
It was time to jet set off to something that will make you pull over from the side of the road and say,
by Jove, what's that? This is Silbury Hill.
It's the largest prehistoric monument in Europe and stands 30 metres high. It's late Neolithic, which means it has perhaps been here for 4,000 years.
This hill as a project represents 4 million hours of hand labour, which begs the question, why? Well, we kind of don't know. No, don't go away. It's far more interesting than that because yes, we don't know, but it could also represent a shift in society. When this hill had begun, we were in the Stone Age. And when it finished, we were just about entering the Bronze Age. And this hill would have been the last of its kind. In fact, I want to say bravely that this is the most unique hill in Britain. And now a short interruption from this episode's sponsor, my dad. And now back to the video. To find out more, I managed to drag a local historian to the hill itself.
So Silbury Hill was built in a whole series of stages between about 2400 BC and about 2200 BC. It started off as a sort of a circular area that was sort of trampled down, probably by people. It's a bit like when you have cows in the corner of a field and it all gets trampled into mud. And then they started putting little round mounds of gravel on top, gravel taken from the river. And then there was a bit of gap, and then they started doing a bit more, and they ended up putting chalk on top of those round mounds. And then what they did was they decided that wasn't big enough. So they moved out, dug another ditch, and used the chalk from that to pile on top of the first one. And then they dug a huge quarry pit all the way out here, took the chalk from that, and carried on building it on top. Over a series of over 200 years, in sort of almost year by year. It's almost like rings of a tree. So they were doing something every year, which is just bizarre. The people who excavated most recently, Jim Leary and Dave Field, their suggestion was to think of it not in the way of they were trying to build something. You know, we're used to the idea of an architect, design something, then you go off and build it. They were looking at the first peoples in North America who built mounds as well. But what they did was they brought baskets of soil from their hunting grounds back to an ancestral homeland. The mound wasn't constructed to be something. It was all about sort of cementing the relationship between this hunting grounds and this ancestral homeland. We have to get beyond the way we think about building. It was more of probably more of a process, a communal activity, rather than being something that's going to end up looking like it does today. We look at it and think, how on earth did they do that? And the amount of effort that went into that. But of course Silbury Hill is only one element of the whole sacred landscape here at Avebury.
There are plenty more monuments around here, but let me take you to my favourite one. You'll have to follow me. It's a little walk up the road, but I promise it's only a little one. Come on. Come on. You can do it. A little bit faster than that. Come on. Literally a minute away, like 30 seconds away. We've got this. We're fine. We're fine. Don't think about that. That's fine. All right, if you want to follow me here, we finally found West Kennet Barrow. West Kennet Barrow is a tomb, come on, that was found in 1859 and later reconstructed in the 50s. But to get here, I've had to walk another 1,300 years in the past. Let's explore it together.
West Kennet Long Barrow is a Neolithic burial mound. At one end there are chambers made of sarsen stone, and then leading from it there's 100 yards of this mound made of chalk. The way the chambers work is that there's a central passageway, one chamber at the end and then two on each side. And in those chambers were buried something like 45 people. We now know from recent DNA evidence and carbon-14 dating that those people all died within 20 to 30 years of each other. There are 3 generations of the same family.
And to get to know this place a little more, I decided to contact an old friend to see what they had to say.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
It's good to meet you.
So, Uga, tell me how this all started. You know, you want to put like all your special people once they died in somewhere nice, and like we thought, about 4,600 BCE, we thought on the hill, overlooking Silbury, and Silbury was nice back then. It was just this. It wasn't half the size it is now. You kids have the best of it, you know.
Brilliant.
So I have to ask, What are the big stones on the front? They look really interesting, their placement right there. Well, it was Karl's idea, really. Yeah, I'm not too sure about it, but you know, we were entering the Bronze Age at the time, and we thought, yeah, Stone Age is a bit boring now, and we thought we'll just fill it up and put like a full stop, put some big rocks on the front so that it would never, ever be disturbed again. It wasn't disturbed, was it? Well, thank you for your time today. How is Karl, by the way? Oh, he got typhus. Oh, I know.
What they were doing is really quite interesting, because the way they buried people was not as we do today. They laid people out probably on a timber platform and let the body decompose. And then they gathered up the bits that were left and placed them in the tomb. And they seem to have arranged the skulls together and the long bones together, and other bits sort of got a bit scattered. So there's one guy who's got his skull is in one chamber, his upper left arm and shoulder blade, which must have been still jointed together, in a second chamber, and then his feet in a third. Which just shows you how it was all mixed together. Very strange. We can also suggest that there may have been a whole series of rituals that were enacted at the tomb, because out the front there's lots of burnt animal bone and broken pottery, and that means parties. The passageway that runs down into the chambers is aligned with what's called the equinox. That's when day and night are equal in March and October. And so you can imagine at dawn the sun would rise, it would shine down that passageway and light up the chamber at the end. We also know that they had musical instruments. You can imagine standing in front of the tomb, if you had drums, flutes, whistles, and chanted, it would reverberate and echo with the chambers. They obviously built it, created it for some reason. And and so we've got to we look at it and think, how on earth did they do that? It's just one small part of, where are we, nearly over almost 1,500 years of human effort that's concentrated in this area. So it's amazing.
And so my journey back in time had come to an end for today. But something was very clear to me. The people that built these monuments wanted to make their mark for the generations to come. What's so interesting is that even though it wasn't how they might have wanted, these monuments scattered across the landscape have affected us in the present day in so many different ways, and they will for the generations to come. But to end my day, I just had one more question.
So what do you think?
It's been interesting. We've learnt a bit about this hill, haven't we? It's handy, and it's nice that they've built it so close to the A4 with a nice car park. It's good.
Yeah.
Lunch?
Lunch.
killed those men. Oh, wait, sorry. I killed those men. All 3 of them. We had the right to work that vein. Us, not them. Lead is money, and they tried to take our lead. I said, no more! They needed to be snuffed out, but they'll never find out I did it. Never, never, never! Oh God.
Hi, my name is Elise and I've come far away and back in time to interview a miner. It's for this thing called a television programme, it's like a newspaper, but it does all the thinking for you. It's going to be a story of murder, mining and magic. Murder? What do you mean, murder? I didn't do nothing. Nothing! Nothing! But yeah, I'll be on the show. Great! This is Magpie Mine. Magpie Mine isn't visited enough for how cool this place really is. Its first records date back to 1740. Now that's old. I spoke to someone who really knows what's going on.
So Magpie Mine is one of the most well-preserved old ancient mines in the country. Certainly the best preserved lead mine. It's in the Derbyshire ore field. The miners were mining lead ore, or galena mineral, from the ground for making lead flashing, for roofs, for water pipes, for houses, offices, factories, etc. And munitions and chemical industry. And it started in the early 1700s and it shut down in the 1950s, finally. But had many geysers. It was shut down in that 250-year history. It was not working continuously, and economics and logistical factors like flooding of the mine shut it for years on end.
Every morning, a miner would get up to go on his 10-hour shift. He would get dressed and go down this thing. This is an entrance shaft to the mine and the only way they're getting in. It's a 300-foot drop and they would use wooden planks all the way down to help them. These planks are called stemples. They've all rotted away now, but that's not all. After the 300-foot drop levels out, they've got another 700 feet on their journey to start work. All in all, that's 300 metres for a daily commute.
So Magpie Mine, because it was a virtually continuously working site for over 250 years, shows the evolution from artisanal mining in the early years of the 1700s to highly mechanised efforts in, for example, in the 1950s. So it shows at one site the evolution of the industry from really very crude artisanal work to deep mine mechanised mining as we know it today.
And in order to find out what really happened here, I travelled far away and back in time to find out a little bit more.
I do. When I worked, lad, we used to get up in the morning at 10:30 at night, half an hour before we go on bed. Our miners got lung disease, arthritis, and our life expectancy were 45 years old. If you were lucky, if you didn't die in the mine. It's a brilliant job, yes. Only for the brave, for the tough. If you're tough like me, you can do this job. Oh my God. You can do this job, not for a southerner like you. We get paid based on how much we get at, and we've got to pay the barmaster to give any lead in. There's no such thing as overtime, just all time, and even miners are being made to work. The miners? No, miners. Children, right, okay. Could you tell me about the murders? They didn't happen. Well, they did. Well, they didn't.
There was a very bitter dispute between two warring factions of miners here. The red soil miners, where we stood here, and the Magpie miners down the slope. They were basically unfortunately working the same vein. They ran into each other, and a hugely bitter and fractious and prolonged dispute took place, which tragically ended in 3 of the red soil miners losing their lives, because what they did, they took straw down into the mines which had been impregnated with bitumen, and they would literally smoke their rivals out. And this practice ended up with 3 red soil miners being asphyxiated by fumes, tragically. The Magpie murders, where 3 red soil miners lost their lives, thankfully was a massive outlier in the history of Derbyshire lead mining. These territorial disputes did occur, but they were sorted out by legal frameworks, and they very rarely descended into acts of petty violence, vandalism and ultimately murder.
24 of us were put on trial for murder that day, and they let us all go because they couldn't pinpoint who it was. They couldn't pinpoint who it was. That was Karl, a name I've used to protect his identity, who died later that day in mysterious circumstances. I spoke to one of the widows to find out their side of the story. I clean the lead as it comes out. I wash the lead, and if I'm lucky, I'll make half as much as what my husband made. Yeah, well, what do you do? One day, your husband doesn't come home. The one you loved, the one who provided for you, you're gone. All for a rich man to have a better house and all these bitter disputes. Sorry. Justice has not been served. Us widows put a curse on this land. It's the least they deserve. They are petty murderers. And this actually happened. Any inconvenience on this site over the years was always blamed on these widows and their crazy curse. It became a phenomenon. In 1839, everything changed. A new mining engineer came on scene, John Taylor, and he brought in regular pay, regular shift patterns, hard hats, safety ties. Safety tie? Is that in the script? Sorry. Is that safety ties? Is that really in the script? It is. Who wrote this? Oh, I did. Yeah. No, I did. Okay, no, let me just cut. I spoke to some of the visitors of Magpie Mine Heritage Opening Day to find out more.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see all the surface remains preserved, because there's shafts all over the Peak District that are just a hole in the ground or some depressions and kind of just remnants really. But here you get the whole scale of things with the engine house, you get the horse gin and the headgear, all the winding engines, and you kind of see what life would have been like around the mine rather than just underground. So I just think it's really interesting how many people this was their whole lives, and there's just so little of it left that what we have here kind of preserves that. And you know, the whole industry is the same as coal mining, the same as with everything, and it's just gone. You know, and these things that we have left are so important to keep going, which is why places like this are great.
We live across the hill in Chesterfield, and whenever friends and family come and visit us in Derbyshire, Magpie Mine is probably the first place that we bring people to, because it's such an iconic place. It's so beautiful and peaceful, and then full of history. So we don't really go to Chatsworth House or Haddon Hall. Magpie Mine's the place where we come.
As a result of the open day, it's the first time I've actually walked around the whole site and had it explained and the history explained, and it's enabled me to translate the landscape almost, to understand it, what's going on underneath it, what formed it. Magpie Mine could be seen as the gateway to the industrial heritage of Derbyshire. So it's been a brilliant day. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. You've been in the middle of nowhere. I've been Elise FreshwaterBlizzard, and as always on this show, this space is free to enter, but please do consider donating. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time in the middle of nowhere. Sorry, wait, I've just realised something. Can you just give me a second? Just give me a second. What? Well, I wasn't going to take the National Rail service, was I? Their bus replacement service wasn't even working today. If you're from Derbyshire, I bet you really think my accent sucks. That's because it does. Welcome back to the only documentary show with a twist. It's an incredibly serious programme, but the presenter can travel back in time. Today I won't need to travel back in time just yet because I'm going to see the sycamore gap tree. This
Sycamore gap tree
is...
got cut down.
Yeah, the
Sorry?
sycamore gap tree got cut down.
It got cut down.
The sycamore gap tree didn't get cut down.
The sycamore gap tree got cut down.
Guys,
ages ago.
I'm not being funny, okay, but that is my favourite tree in the UK. So if you could stop with the negativity, please, that would be really great. Thank you. This is the middle. It didn't get cut down. It can't have got cut down. If it was cut down, I wouldn't have an episode to shoot. Let's put it like this. If it was cut down, I'd be so upset and so mad that I would probably swear a lot, and that's not good for the show, and I don't want you to see that, quite frankly. So can we just carry on with the shoot, please? Thank you. Right, let's go. Okay. This is the middle of nowhere.
To get to the sycamore gap tree, we took the train, which was a positively British experience, standing most of the way, cubicles out of order, and being 2 hours late. We found ourselves in Barden Mill train station, ready to walk to the beautiful sycamore gap tree. Gosh, wouldn't the BBC just love this type of programme?
I've come to show you Britain's biggest secret. Standing solitary by Hadrian's Wall, between two small hills, is a grand tree that's rooted itself for 300 years. That's before Wi-Fi was invented. The Northumberland Park says that this spot is the most photographed spot of the park, and what a beauty it is. Oh, for f***ing sake. I mean, really. I mean, f***ing really. I mean, what day is it? If we'd have used the time machine and gone back 3 f***ing weeks, we would have been fine, and we'd have made a great TV f***ing show, and the BBC would have thought this was amazing, and bloody kids would have loved it. The kids would have f***ing loved this thing, but instead of making an educational country television show, everyone's going to think this is a pot. And we're not pots. Bloody mother. This is the sycamore gap. This is the gap. This is the sycamore stump gap. The sycamore stump gap is set in a beautiful location and was used for 1991's Robin Hood, many romantic proposals, and of course, probably a lot of picnics as well. With the power of AI and modern photoshopping skills, I have carefully reconstructed this tree now. This tree was felled recently in an act of alleged vandalism. I spoke to a passerby to find out what they had to say. Why have you come visiting today?
Oh, well, I'm quite into sort of British history, and I wanted to come and see Hadrian's Wall, and because Sycamore Gap's been in the news quite a bit recently, I thought I might come see the stump too, what's left of it, and have a look. And I see they've obviously put the sign up, which is quite nice, quite quick work. Yeah, it's a bit smaller than I thought it would be actually, but it's quite a forbidding environment, I guess.
Are you sad about the tree getting cut down, or is it like you don't really mind?
Yeah, I mean, not particularly. I think there's bigger issues in the world. This tree has recently sort of been put in perspective by other things going on. But I'd rather it have been here. I lived in Newcastle for about 4 years, and I'd never actually come to see Sycamore Gap. I'd always thought about it, but obviously it's not too accessible. It's quite hard to get to, so I never got round to it. And now I have, because it's probably become more popular, more famous since the tree's been cut down, if anything. And I've come to see it. So in a way, maybe the fact that it's been cut down has brought more interest. I probably wouldn't have come otherwise.
I spoke to Chris Jones, the Historic Environment Officer for Northumberland National Park, to find out more.
If you look at the tree itself, we think it was deliberately planted. It's the tree hasn't got that much ecological value as a sycamore. It's been in this country for hundreds of years. We think it wasn't originally native, but has become so. They're everywhere. So the sycamore itself doesn't have any ecological value other than it's a tree, it's a living thing, it's part of nature. The tree seems to have acquired this huge cultural significance, and quite late on, in recent times, we will talk about Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. How do people perceive the tree? It's such an iconic thing. It's a kind of cultural emblem. It's a symbol of nature. It's really in this, basically it's a glacial meltwater channel. It's millions of years old. As we know, this landscape was formed millions of years ago by ice and fire. You've got the windsill crags and these channels that glacial movement has created. And then there's this tree in this space with Hadrian's Wall right beside it. It's got incredible cultural significance. And what's happened, as we've seen with losing the tree, it's reminded people of actually how fragile our environment is. So simple one act can elicit such a huge response, and people suddenly value things when they're gone. So in some ways, the positive thing to take from this awful episode is that how we value nature, what our cultural heritage means to us, and how can we be more careful and protect it and value it going forward.
I spoke to Mary Anna Hotter, a broadcast journalist and anthropologist who's written several books about old things in the middle of nowhere. That's pretty cool, right? And she's presented for Time Team. Let's find out what she has to say.
I read a comment on social media shortly after the news broke that someone had come and cut down the tree, kind of saying, hang on a minute, we are, losing species. We've got a biodiversity crisis. We've lost thousands of ancient and veteran trees. In Sheffield, they cut down all the street trees. HS2 is like mowing holes through ancient woodlands. Why are we not weeping about all those trees? Each one of them represents the home of thousands of different invertebrates and birds and animals, and we're destroying these habitats. Why are we all weeping over this one blooming tree that wasn't that great and actually is this one survivor of what should be a woodland? The reason it stood out is because it's the only one. It shouldn't be the only one. It should be in a woodland. It's that emotional thing, isn't it? It's the storytelling animal that we are. That one tree that stands out, that is iconic, that sort of has a personality, a name that kind of features culturally, becomes more important, partly because it represents the anonymous others, but also because it's just kind of easier to get your head around the loss of one tree rather than this kind of big idea of, a nature crisis. Like, what's that mean? No one knows really. I mean, lots of people do, but it's just hard to get your head around it. It's hard to care on an emotional, gut level.
I couldn't help but mention a little bit about Hadrian's Wall. The Romans built Hadrian's Wall without any planning permission. This is probably why they are regarded as so cool. Not to the most northern tribes, though. The Roman army built this thing because all of the Roman soldiers were also skilled craftsmen. If you have to ask where all the good men have gone, it's probably somewhere within the Roman Empire.
The wall was built on the orders of the Emperor Hadrian, and it's the northernmost frontier of the entire Roman Empire at the time. It's really interesting. It's a myth that it's the border between England and Scotland. Scotland didn't exist in the time of the Romans. Scotland didn't exist until nearly 1,000 years later. and the border was the frontier between the Roman Empire and the world beyond the empire. We don't really know why the Romans stopped at this point, but we think it makes sense in terms of the topography and the landscape. So if you look on the map, you'll see a narrow neck of land between modern-day Newcastle and Carlisle, and you'll also see the Wind Sill, this great iconic landscape feature. And the landscape is something that attracted the Romans to build their frontier. It had the resources that they needed to build it. It was also a very good place to put a military frontier.
I finally went far away and back in time to 124 BCE to meet someone. Damn. Look at him. I mean, wow. See, this is what I told you about ancient Roman guys. They are just... ugh. But trust me, they are not worth it. They will literally break your heart. Don't do it.
Hail Hadrian, morum inter minni imperi Romani constituimus. Oh, sorry, do you speak English? Sorry, nah. Just joshing you. You should have seen your face though, you should have seen your face. I was saying we built the wall so we could establish the edge of the Roman Empire. Nice. So when did you start building this thing? 122 AD, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. And why here? To send a message. You either visit Rome or Rome visits you. With a 15-foot wall. And the barbaric tribes of Caledonia, Scotland, will know that we are stronger than them. So why don't you just attack Caledonia instead then? Well, we're not scared of them. We're not. We just want to send a clear message.
Oh, Dave, you cunt, what's going on?
There's no swearing on
mate,
this
it's so
show.
nice
to see you.
You need to get back to the fort now. Bloody Hadrian. Hail Hadrian. Hail Hadrian. Want us right and ready for everything.
Yeah, I'll be back in a sec, mate. I've just got to finish this weird interview with this time-travelling woman.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah, well, you know what the British are like. Can't even speak Latin. Always expecting other people to speak their language. Bloody British. Well, technically, you guys invaded us. Ergo, I am speaking various forms of Latin as I speak. Oh, shut up, British pleb. Do you know where you get your word sanitation from, eh? Latin.
Sanus, meaning
Latin.
Clean and healthy. Ah, you bloody British with no plumbing. You hadn't even had plumbing before us. Oi, Dave, tell her to go back in time to see what this place was like before we came in. Hole.
Sorry, there's no swearing on this.
I'm a little British woman. Yeah. I don't know what plumbing is or running water. I like to bathe in the streams. Heated water? What's that? Oh God, gosh, are the Romans leaving? Are the Romans leaving? Can't live without them. I have to go in the Dark Ages. Oh, pity I can't live without a Roman. Is there any chance you could give me a lift back, by the way?
Well, this has been nice, but I've got to get back to Vindolanda, my fort, where I've got a nice bath waiting for me. Oh, with some underfloor heating. And you can go back to wherever you're from, British person. Bet you don't have all that. I've got to stop doing these interviews.
The Romans did live on the wall, but it's a military area. So the forts, for example, Housestead's fort, is a barracks. So the soldiers lived there. But there's settlements outside of those forts called a vicus. It's a civilian settlement. So those who weren't military lived in those areas, and they're like small towns, garrison towns. All the services that soldiers need were in those towns. But information from the Roman tablets, the writing tablets from Vindolanda Fort, are really important because they give us insights into ordinary life, letters to and from home and the frontier, and also things like, can you send me a pair of socks?
If a tree falls in the middle of nowhere and nobody's there to hear it, does it ever make a sound? Well, we finally have an answer. It turns out, yes. Yes, it does. It's the sound of anger, confusion, sadness, a million voices that simply don't understand because they've been robbed of a simple joy that was shade, quiet, relaxation, picnics and pondering. Question 2, when did you last touch grass? If your answer to that question was, meh, then I've got some news for you. You might be out of touch with nature. It's not your fault. Society has primed us to believe that animals are outside, humans are inside, and nature is completely separate from us. But this is not the case. We are animals, and if we treat nature with respect, we symbiotically help ourselves as well. Here I am in the Sycamore Gap room. This room is dedicated to the fallen tree. If we learn to treat spaces like these, like the Sycamore Gap tree, with respect, we learn to protect them as well. It's no wonder why young people who grow into old people simply don't care. Why should they care? It's just a tree. Are we even shocked that this tragedy happened when we're not educated to love these spaces?
It's entirely understandable that everyone got very upset about the Sycamore Gap tree, and it's right that we got upset about it getting chopped down. I think the challenge for people who work in heritage now and people who work in communications and all of us members of the public who care about this stuff is, how do we harness that caring and that emotion and transfer it into a more wider sense of responsibility for all the things that don't have names and don't have, like massive Instagram hashtags attached to them.
And this is what I do. I go out and I show you spaces in the hope that you'll have your own adventures, because the more likely we educate ourselves on how special these places really are, the more likely things like this, tragedies like this, won't happen again. In the meantime, don't worry. Things like this, tragedies like this, when they happen, humans shine the brightest. And let's hope for every one tree that's felled, we try to plant 1,000 more. But in the meantime, I've got to go as I'm a time traveller, and I'll see you in the next episode in the middle of nowhere.
And now, in episode B, the stump joke. The stump joke.
I just wanted to take a closer look at the stump, as this is hundreds of years worth of history that we are seeing. And oh my god, there's there's a hole down here that's been revealed. Oh my goodness, I can get my hand in it. It looks like a hole. Okay, there's a series of labyrinths down here, guys. I'm pretty sure I can see some sort of entrance to a cave or something. Oh, you don't have premium? Okay, well, I guess we'll move on to the next one then. See you in the next episode.
It's pink, but it's pink.
Is that? Welcome to my new YouTube channel in 4000 BCE, and this is my home tour. It's called Thor's Cave, and on this channel I'm going to be talking about me. I know. Oh my god, someone's taking my show. Once you see what I eat every day, my morning routine, my daytime routine, what I do on a Sunday, you'll realise that I am incredibly interesting. So if it's really easy, all you have to do, I'm gonna fall. Oh my god, it's so slippery.
Well, that's where I stacked it.
Okay, oh, not the equipment. Okay, et voila! Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, YouTube, for watching my first video. This has been my home tour.
Sit.
Nice ring, by the way. Oh, this. Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I got this from this really nice artisanal place down in Sheffield. Yeah, I had a really great... Wait a second. Are you kidding me? You're trying to take my show from me. This is my show. What do you think you're doing?
I thought you said I could be on it.
I asked for an interview, not whatever this is. Jesus Christ.
Who?
Yeah, I'm just going to take my camera now and leave.
Oh, okay, fine. Do you know what? That's really helpful, Elise. I'm going to go.
No, don't stop me. I didn't want to be part of your show anyway, okay? So don't even try and stop me.
Okay? I didn't want to be part of your show. I'm going to say that again. I didn't want to be part of your show anyway, so it's fine.
Yep.
It's fine. So don't stop me. All right. I will go.
Yep.
So don't try and stop me.
That's
what you want.
What I wanted you to do.
Then that's chill. Okay. All right.
You can go.
Okay. And I don't have to tell you twice, because I'm going. Because I said that's what I'd do. So I'm leaving. Okay? You just so you know, that's what's...
Before you ask what on earth this show is coming to, you must first ask, how are places like these even made? This is Thor's Cave, just outside of Wetton in the Staffordshire Peak District. And of course, it's a limestone cave. Of all the rocks, limestone is a little soft boy. It can be moulded, impacted, all just by rainwater. It's the type of rock that would cry if you rubbed onion juice on it. Oh. But it's the type of rock you'd take home to your mother. Why? Because it's always allowing new cave networks and innovating new pathways underground. It's always being chiselled away by rainwater in a minuscule way, changing a cave's look and form every single time it floods. The girlies that get it, get it.
I spoke to Mariana Hotter, a broadcast journalist and anthropologist who's written several books about old things in the middle of nowhere. That's pretty cool, right? And she's presented for Time Team. Let's find out what she has to say.
So caves, natural caves have always been used by people from our kind of early ancestral species. Often you find evidence of habitation and activity in caves and rock shelters, and that's absolutely true of the British Isles as well. We know that people in the kind of the warm bit in the middle of the last ice age, people were using those caves, actually probably cannibalizing, possibly ritual cannibalism, because they're using skulls to change the shape. They've kind of modified skulls to make what looks like a bowl, and you can find kind of cut marks and pattern marks on human bones as well. Also bite marks, so they were definitely eating each other as well as doing kind of weird kind of art.
Making a cave takes millions of years and starts with this stuff. Right here we have a river which contains water. Let me show you. Carbon dioxide in the air dissolves into water, making something we call carbonic acid. The carbonic acid in the water flows into the cracks in the rock and it dissolves the limestone just a little bit. It does this for millions of years until these cracks are big enough to walk into, or perhaps squeeze into. And literally, the definition of a cave is a natural void in the earth that a human can get into.
And then you find the oldest human burial in the UK. That's even earlier. That's about 33,000 years old. That's in Paviland Cave in the south of Wales on the Gower Peninsula. And that was a kind of a young male skeleton that was covered with red ochre, with little rods of mammoth ivory that had been carefully carved. We don't really know what they were. Maybe blanks for jewellery making or bead making. Maybe a kind of tiny little magician's wand. We don't know. Speculate at will. And then you find loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of evidence of people using caves, because they're kind of handy places. They're dry, or they can be dry. They can be sheltered. They can be. They kind of have a great potential for kind of imaginative ritual or spiritual use as well, because it feels like you're in the earth. And so we find evidence of art, but also like kind of hunting camps, or a good place to kip over if you're travelling across a landscape. It's sort of like a ready-made nature's tent. People have always used caves either for ritual purposes or for practical purposes, because they're good for both. They're good for using and they're also good for thinking with.
Oh, jolly good. Is this one of those cameras from your day? Yeah, I thought it looks really
I
nice.
went far away and back in time to 1864 to interview this chap. This is Samuel Carrington, and he excavated Thor's Cave.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Really great to meet you. Can I just say that for our audience as well, I really wanted to have you on the show. It was really hard to get you and I'm really excited, but we had to rearrange our schedules to be able to do this. So I think you guys will really love Samuel. He's really interested, just as much as me actually, about like geological features. So please just natter away about Thor's Cave.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you. Yes, Thor's Cave, a wonderful place. And you can just tell that. I know it's caked and choked with mud, but it is one of the most beautiful natural wonders in this area. We found bronze brooches bone pins, coins, combs, bronze armlet, and so much more. Yes, we have evidence of Neolithic people using this space, but we have evidence from the people from the 2nd and 3rd centuries using this space as well. We even found what we think might be Paleolithic flint flake, which is an early tool used by humans. As we're talking, Elise, you should go about a mile away from Thor's Cave. There's a nice place I excavated. Where was it called? Long Low, I think it was. Long Low, it's a burial mound, and I found bits and bobs there as well. So check that out. We found a Neolithic crouched burial. That's when all the bones in the earth are lying in a crouching, like a fetal position. Kind of a weird one, actually. We found a crouched burial, but we did not find the skull. So not really sure what happened to the skull or what was being done to the skull. Perhaps some sort of religious practice. We don't know. It's a shame, really, isn't it? If only we had some sort of time machine to go back and to be able to communicate with these people. I mean, what did they do as a morning routine? What did they do as a nighttime routine? And what did they do on a Sunday? It would just be so convenient to be able to simply ask them these questions. Okay, well, maybe they didn't have like any way to document what they were doing, and maybe they didn't have any motivation to. We also found this nice little ring here from the dig. There you are, camera. What? No, you didn't. That's my ring. What? How did you? What? I say, I don't mean to be rude, but you don't seem to be at home with your children. No. I mean to say that if you didn't have children and you're unwed, then I'm free tonight. Oh, fancy transition out of here, please.
To 4000 BC. After slipping up and landing in the mud several times at Thor's Cave, it was time to hop in my friend's car and visit a nearby field a short distance away. This nearby site took us a while to find, but we finally spotted it from the car about a mile away. This place is the inspiration of this series. It's a Neolithic burial mound, so I decided to visit a friend who actually designed it.
Elise!
Karl, bring it in, Karl.
It's a bit windy out here. It's bad weather, and all I'm looking at is a bunch of mounds. So tell me what is going on. Take it away. So this is a typical burial tomb that I designed. You see, if you cremate someone, they're not going to be remembered very well in an hour to 6,000 years' time. As I always say, ashes to ashes really does make the whole world forget about you. Therefore, it's much easier and much better to get a burial tomb. And it's such a fad right now. I should know. I designed them. How many views do you get on this show?
About 2, actually.
Brilliant!
Yeah.
Then I always use local stone and organic products. And if you buy one burial tomb, you'll get the extra one for free. Oh my goodness! I said, if you buy one burial tomb, you'll get the extra one just for free. Just take a look at this one I built earlier. It's gigantic.
End product may vary from advert suggestion, subject to status, T's and C's apply, corpses not included.
I found this long barrow with quarter of a Wikipedia article. It's got a few lines on it, and it's like, well, it's in a field and no one cares about it.
So the site you're describing, Long Low, it is absolutely unique. And there's quite a few theories about what this big, long, low mound is. Is it actually a long barrow, so that would be from the late Stone Age, or is it actually 2 Bronze Age round barrows at either end, and then they kind of filled in the middle, possibly to make it look like an even more ancient monument? So I love the idea that people in the Bronze Age are going, hang on a minute guys, if we fill in the gap between those two old burials, we can make it look like one of those really, really old ones where the dragons lived, or, you know, whatever. Or maybe it was a long mound, and then later people used or sort of co-opted the power of this ancient site by putting two of their famous or celebrated individuals or families or whoever it was at either end. And then, of course, you've got 4,000 odd years of people mucking about with it. So probably, I don't know, medieval farmers or Roman farmers going, oh, we need a bit of earth or some rubble, let's go and dig it out of there. Or, you know, I love those sites because they're so honest and there for the exploration that you can just like tramp about a field and stare at things that may have been the most sacred or mystical thing that someone had ever seen in their life, and now they're utterly overlooked, and they're, you know, archived and they're recorded in some kind of database that no one really looks at, and the local archaeologist might be like, oh yeah, there's an entry on that somewhere, but no one's doing anything to it, so we'll just leave it be.
Pet, don't listen to her. She doesn't know how to design a tomb as well as I can. I'll even throw in an extra. I'll help decompose the body for you. Check out this one I made earlier. It's Auntie Margaret's femur. She was a small lady. But that's not all. I'll even throw in 2 extra stones on the front when you want to seal the tomb forever. You have the Karl back guarantee.
Are you okay?
No, I think it's typhus again.
It is so like you to get typhus.
I know. I'm just one unlucky sod.
The bones of 13 people were found here by Carrington, where the tomb was irreversibly damaged. Since, this little mound has been forgotten about. The landowner even put a wall through it. And so it inspired me to create a series about places we don't really care about today, but had so much meaning in the past. If you're driving around Britain, I bet you've taken a glance out the window, and unbeknownst to you, you've seen an intact Neolithic burial mound. As Hugh Grant once famously said, if you look for it, I've got a sneaky feeling that intact Neolithic burial mounds actually are all around. It's goodbye from me, and I'll see you in the next episode of, say it with me now, The Middle of Nowhere. Do you think they said it? Hope so.
It's actually the same makeup look I wore for my granddad's cremation last week, so... Oh, thank you for the berries, Oog. Brag, is that a new phone? Yes. This one, yeah, I stole it. Got my phone from this time-travelling woman. Yeah. I reckon we could have been friends if I didn't steal her stuff, but it's whatever. Brug, you're still cremating the dead? Yeah, that's what we do right now. But after all these comments I keep seeing about these burial tombs, is it burial mounds? I'm thinking I should tell my tribe about it. I think it might be a great place to have parties to celebrate the dead. The thing is, I have no idea where I would
put it, or where I'd tell my tribe to put it. Thanks. About a mile in that direction, there's a really good spot. Oh my goodness, we could call it Dragon's Back or greatest mound, great mound of the Great Hill of all time. Or, yeah, you could call it Long Low or something, I don't know. Whatever you feel like. Okay, see you, bye. Yeah, bye. Wait. Just before you go, you should take this. Here. Thank you. Yeah, it does. Thank you. This looks better on you than me anyway. So. You. Thank you so much. Right. Okay. I'm gonna go. Right. See you. Wrong way. Wrong way. Got it. Yeah. Bye. Well, that's me done with, and. Pew! You killed my love. It's possible. I kill lots of people. Who was this love of yours? Another prince like this one? Ugly, rich, and scabby? No, a farm boy. Poor. Poor and perfect. With eyes like the sea after a storm. On the high seas, your ship attacked, and the dread pirate Roberts never takes prisoners. Well, I can't afford to make exceptions. I mean, once word leaks out that a pirate has gone soft, people begin to disobey you, and it's nothing but work, work, work all the time. You mock my pain! Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something. I remember this farm boy of yours, I think. This would be, what, 5 years ago? Does it bother you to hear? Nothing he could say would upset me. He died well. That should please you. No bribe attempts or blabbering. He simply said, please. Please, I need to live. 'Twas the please that caught my memory. I asked him what was so important for him here. True love, he replied. And then he spoke of a girl of surpassing beauty and faithfulness. I can only assume he meant you. You should bless me for destroying him before he found out what you really are. And what am I? Faithfulness he talked of, madam, your enduring faithfulness. Now tell me truly, when you found out he was gone, did you get engaged to your prince at the same hour, or did you wait a whole week out of respect for the dead? You mocked me once, never do it again! I died that day! Click, clop, click, clop, click, clop. You can die too, for all I care. As you wish. Oh, my sweet Wesley, what have I done? Oh, That was a scene from The Princess Bride, originally shot here in Cavedale. Cavedale has also been used for the Game of Thrones spin-off series House of Dragon. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so lovely. Needs more sugar. I spoke to a passerby, a stranger walking through, to see what they thought of this place. What brings you here?
It's it's a remarkable place to come and walk, to come and spend time, really. I don't know if it'll be clear on the surrounding audio rather than the main pickup, but with the high sides, there's a spectacular sense of isolation, and particularly from sound. It's very still, it's very quiet in here. I mean, partly due to the quietness of the valley itself, but that's just amplified here, particularly on a still and snowy day like this. And then on top of that, you know, you're walking on the ocean bed, you're on a compressed coral reef. What a remarkable place to be able to just come and be.
Babe, what are you talking about? There's no drone around. You know, I love guys without any brains. Oh my God, right, so Cavedale is hidden behind a small village called Castleton. Castleton is in the Peak District, and people often miss out on this spot because it's very hidden. You've got to go down a narrow alleyway at the back of the village to get here. Let's talk about how this place was made in a long, geological, boring paragraph, shall we? Bosh! I'm not doing that. Let's instead go far away and back in time. Bugger! Oh my God. Oh, my socks are wet. Oh. As you may have noticed, it's a warm, shallow sea. Inside, there are plenty of crustaceans. A lot of them super recognisable. Ammonites, bivalves, crinoids. They're all having the best time of their life right now, until they die. Did you like that? I thought it'd be a bit like, you know,
Get
tension.
on with it!
Yeah, get on with it!
All
All right.
right.
The shells become compacted from the layers upon layers of other shells and sand that keep sinking to the ocean floor. The seawater too puts pressure on this layer of sand and seashell until slowly it solidifies. It turns to rock. Really think about that. Imagine how much pressure it takes to turn a bunch of sand and shells into rock for that long a time. It's tons and tons of weight pressing down on something until it completely hardens and is never the same again. That's almost comparable to my secondary school experience here in the UK. But what rock is this called? Jessica?
Is it gritstone?
Thomas?
It's limestone!
Aha! Bingo! It's limestone, the sexiest rock of all time. Gosh, I can't wait to tell you about speleogenesis. But let's go back to the present and see what this looks like. Wow, that's a view. Oh, I should present here. Yeah. Throughout Cavedale, there is evidence of all of this happening over millions of years, all in the rocks the passers-by walk over. Most of them go unnoticed, like this bland-looking rock here. However, if you take a closer look, somewhere on the rock, there's always going to be a little bit of evidence that something has been here. Now, keep in mind, that is not a shell. That's the imprint of a shell. Places like these are and should be protected. So I'm going to put this little buddy back where it belongs. But before I do, I christen you Karl. Hi, Karl.
Oh my god, I'm on the television. Hi Mum, hi Dad. Oh, hi Elise, I'm a big fan. I just want to say I'm grateful for this opportunity.
Places like these show more evidence of it shifting in different directions. So, you've got a big chungus block of limestone. But Cavedale isn't a block of limestone anymore because you can walk through it. So, what happened? Jessica.
Is it gritstone?
You keep using that word. I don't think you know what it means. Thomas.
It cracks.
Ah, excellent. It cracks. But what makes it crack? Pressure. A rock doesn't just crack willy-nilly. It needs applied force. What are we talking about here?
Tectonic plates.
That's
So
right.
it's not gritstone?
It's tectonic plates. Isn't that right, Elise?
Yes, what I'm in right now is creating my favourite Derbyshire limestone, and it's going to shift all the way up from the tectonic plate action to where Britain is today, making it a much cooler continent.
Ah, well, okay. That was weird, but, right. I'm not going to have to do that, am I? I don't really want to get wet. Anyway, before we move on to a fantastic example, I just want to let you know that yes, there is a castle in the background of this video. This is Peveril Castle, which was built just above Cavedale. Here, I've selected a sample of Cavedale. This sample speaks volumes to me because what it's saying is it's shifted at some point. It's moved. How can you tell? Because the cracks do not go in a straight line. They're going like this. They're not going like that. They're going like this. In fact, the whole piece, the whole chunk of Cavedale is on an upward gradient. Why? Because of the tectonic plates shifting. But if you think about it, let's use the example of my finger here. You've got pressure on one side and you've got pressure on the other. And eventually, what is going to happen? Bam! It starts to buckle under the pressure, and the rock is literally doing that. Now, the geological term, believe it or not, for the cracks you get from that process are called joints, which is really easy to remember because the joints are allowing that to happen in your finger as well.
Rainwater then runs into these joints in the rock. The acid in the water, carbonic acid, begins to whittle away at the rock over time, and that is what's making a cave. In fact, Cavedale used to be a cave, but because of all that glacial ice melt, this valley has been carved deeply out. The water that runs through Cavedale now actually disappears to the caverns that lie underneath it. That's right, when you're walking through Cavedale, you're walking over caves.
Elise, come pick me up. What are you doing waving? Stop waving. I want to be on television.
Oh, she's gone. And I suppose it would have been nice to be on television. Cassandra left me 2 years ago now. I still think of her. Carol. Was it Carol or Cassandra? Oh, I don't know. Either one of them, really. Oh, Carol took the kids away. Now I'll never see them again. Well, apart from on weekends, but I'm busy most weekends, so if only they enjoyed golfing as well. I do want to meet more women. It's just trying to find them in a sea of rock and no women. You see, if I wasn't such a thespian myself, I would think, where have all my friends gone? Is it because I've been talking too much? It's because I talk too little. I need to talk more. I need to have someone record down what I say for others, other generations to listen to. Because I have the advice to end all advice. Step 1.
250 years ago, travelling across the country could have dangerous repercussions. Being a stranger in a village meant that you were judged more fiercely and probably questioned. This is a tale about when travelling goes wrong. In a tale of love, murder,
folklore,
and cursed roads. That's right. You better start believing in documentaries about ghost stories, Miss Turner, because you're about to be in one. My name is Elise Freshwater-Blizzard. I am your time-travelling host, and you are watching the final episode of The Middle of Nowhere. Our story begins in a small village called Castleton. Castleton was a poor village in Derbyshire where nothing really happened. The locals either mined out lead ore from the local mines, a dangerous job, or they made rope in the local cave, a miserable job. Between dangerous and miserable, there wasn't much else going on in this village. No one came to stay for long. I mean, it's hard to get to, and the villagers are miserable bastards. Yes, even back then. Today, nobody is mining or poor here. In fact, the locals are now considered well off, and the millions of tourists that pass through here quickly realise that you can't do anything here for under £25. One chocolate bar, that's £25, please. As most Derbyshire men seem to say, life was different back in today, and our story begins in today. More specifically, 1745. Or 1768. Or somewhere between those dates.
I went far away and back in time to meet two lovers who are our main characters in this story.
Hi. Alan, Clara, thank you both for coming on the show. I've heard you've just got into Castleton from Scotland. That's right. Now, normally, nobody goes to a poor, run-down village like this that's in the middle of nowhere by choice. So what brought you here? Oh, do you want to say it first?
No, you say it first.
Okay. If one of you... Well, why don't we say it together?
Yeah, say it together.
Yeah. Just 3, 2, 3, 1. Can we just...
We're always like this. We're getting married. Not got a ring yet.
Oh, you will. You'll get a ring.
You'll get the ring, no?
What? Well, my stupid father didn't want us to get married, you see.
He's got no right!
Oh, honey, it's all right.
There's a chapel in Peak
Honey?
Forest. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. There's a chapel in Peak Forest, so we're staying the night here, and at the crack of dawn, we're heading up through Winnet's Pass and to Peak Forest. We're so excited that we're going to tell everybody about our love, how we've brought all our money with us for our new lives, and where we're going, and what specific time we'll be vulnerable and alone. Wow, with no telephones invented, police force established, or any way to put out an emergency signal, I wildly encourage that for you both. Can we share with you how we met? No. So it all started when I was buying ham at the marketplace.
You were wearing the same thing you are now, love. I remember it really well.
Well, it was last week, silly.
Oh, yeah!
Alan and Clara were open about their plans with all the locals in the village. They booked a night at the pub, had some drinks, and discussed their plans with the local lead miners, who were enjoying their evening pints after work. What Alan and Clara didn't know, however, is that you should never trust a miner with a pint, because some evil plans started to brew. They were going to rob Alan and Clara on Winnett's Pass. I took to the road and followed the path that Alan and Clara walked all those years ago. It's a road still used today to get out of Castleton and head to Manchester. It's the most dangerous road I know, and I know a lot of roads. Imagine for a moment that I am Alan and Clara, but that's two people and I'm one person. So I'll go with their couple name I just made up. Karl sounds like a mixture of their names, so I'll go with that just for today. In the 1700s, Karl would have been walking up the road like this. They've just had a nice sleep in Castleton and they're excited for their future. Notice the safety scale. It's at a normal level. It's the type of danger you'd experience buttering a piece of toast on a Sunday afternoon. Trust me, I've been there. But look what happens when I cross the boundary wall into Winnett's Pass. The graph goes into danger mode. It's akin to ignoring the red flags on a first date. But let's ignore those red flags and keep walking, shall we? Over the years, thousands of cars break down here on the steep gradient. Some slip off the top cliffs and die. Some get hit by rocks. Some crash into the bottom wall. Some die here just for the thrill of it. And that's just the cars we're talking about. Or is it? I'm at the top of Winnett's Pass now. Karl wouldn't have made it to this point because they were busy being murdered further down the road. But take a look at what the safety scale is doing. That's right. It explodes. We really don't know how the murders happened on the day we weren't there. It could have been dramatic.
You're gonna die now. Yeah, we're gonna kill you.
It could have been accidental.
Please don't kill me.
It was an accident. Stop it. We're gonna have to kill you if you don't stop screaming.
Or it could have happened any other way. We just don't know.
Have you ever thought about mining Bitcoin?
I'm gonna kill myself.
No.
The murders rang out through history. The bones of Alan and Clara were found a few years later. Their bodies dumped down a mine shaft. The saddle they used for the horse is now preserved at Speedwell Cavern, and the names of the murderers, they're in the local historical mining records. This folklore story puts Castleton on the map, and for me, teaches us a lesson. Don't go anywhere near miners. They seem like dangerous men. Thankfully, though, all the murdering miners in this story had gruesome endings, and one of them confessed to all the killings on his deathbed, which is how we know who did it.
Easy, love. You seem to know a lot about us, little lady. How do you know so much about us? What's going to happen to us? What happened to us?
You want to know what happens to you? All of you? You slip off cliffs. You die horrifically in mines. You hang yourselves out of sheer guilt. And one of you slips into a deep psychosis that never fully heals. And you know the funny thing, boys? The funny thing is that the money you so desperately wanted won't be enough. Peter, that horse you just bought, with that money, it dies in a week. But thank you for reminding me of that. I actually forgot to tell my audience that. But thank you very much, boys. I've had a great time, great documentary, and I will be off. Thank you. Right. Okay. Roll the
the credits. Oh my god! I'm so sorry.